While she was lying in the maternity hospital for safekeeping, waiting for triplets, her husband secretly divorced her and did not even call. The air is stuck in Inez's lungs when an elegant woman with a predatory smile put the divorce papers on the hospital bedside table. Nicholas. He thinks that it will hurt him to see you in such a state. Inessa did not yet know that this was only the beginning of the trials, which will destroy the foundation of her life but will help her find her real self. Inessa lay peering at the ceiling, on which the bizarre shadows of the street lamps painted pictures of her unfulfilled hopes. Her body, stretched like a string, refused to fall asleep. She slowly ran her hand over the huge belly, feeling the triplets inside respond with thrusts. 3 hearts beat in a different rhythm than her own. Children. They lived their own lives, taking more and more of it every day. When will it end? The thought slid along the edge, consciousness, leaving behind a bitter taste of guilt. The clock on the bedside table showed 3 hours 17 minutes. Inessa winced, trying to roll over on her side, but her stomach, as if a lump, chained her to one position. A little more than 2 months, if the babies do not decide to appear earlier. 3 years ago in the State Museum, a large exhibition of the Impressionists was held. Inessa, who had just finished the restoration of A Woman with an Umbrella from a private collection, was in high spirits. It was possible to restore an almost lost fragment of the canvas, and even the meticulous curator of the museum noted her work. "I'm sorry, but your monitors don't work here." A deep male voice rang out behind him. Inessa turned around. A tall man in a strict shirt with rolled-up sleeves was holding a tablet in his hands. His dark hair, a little disheveled, gave him the appearance of a free artist, but his purposeful gaze betrayed a man accustomed to solving problems. I'm not responsible for the technique." She smiled involuntarily. "I'm a restorer, Nicholas." "I'm sorry, I thought you were from the staff. I'm setting up a virtual reality system here for a new exposition." His hand was warm and dry. "There are no traces of a ring on the ring finger, Inessa. I work with real paintings, not virtual ones. We bet I'll prove to you in an evening that virtual art is no less real." This is how their story began, banal and predictable as hundreds of others begin. Walks in evening Moscow, conversations about mana and new 3D printing technologies, a kiss at her entrance, the smell of rain on his hair. Inessa shuddered. From a sudden jolt from within. Some of the kids were especially active in reminding of themselves. Nikolai moved in a month later, after getting to know each other. "It's easy, as if I've always lived here." He was decisive, assertive. She was talking about her, about planned projects and contracts with galleries. He nodded, and kissed her behind her ear, where the skin was especially sensitive. "We need a child, Ness," he said one evening as they sat with glasses of wine on the balcony. "I want our little genius with your flair for color and my logical thinking." "Enough, Kolya! It's not the right time," she smiled, taking it as a joke. "I just signed a contract for the restoration of the Ribbonin collection. This will seriously raise my reputation. Career is not going anywhere, but time is passing." Fingers ran through her hair, and her voice sounded soft and soothing, like a hypnotist's. "You're already 32. I don't want it to be too late later." What she took for concern turned out to be the beginning of manipulation. He wanted a child. She fulfills the contract. The smell of burnt toast brought her back to reality after a short sleep. Who came in the morning? Inessa got out of bed with difficulty, wrapping herself in a bathrobe. Nikolai in the kitchen slammed the cabinet doors loudly. "Where are the clean mugs? I'm late, I'm carrying it." Where she always was, she leaned on doorpost. As she caught her breath, the throbbing pain in her back intensified. "Have you seen what's going on here?" Hand to the kitchen where there were unwashed cups on the table. "There is a dishwasher. What do you need to download it?" "I spent the whole day, I work hard, come home," and then he stopped, looking at her face. "I'm sorry, but I'm really late for me today." Presentation. Inessa silently walked to the closet, took out a clean mug and put it in front of him. Each movement was a weight in the lower back. "I didn't have time yesterday." The words came with difficulty. My throat choked. "After the doctor's appointment I barely made it home." The average child has little amniotic fluid. You need to lie down for preservation. Again he raised his eyebrows. For the 4th month now, all you have been doing is going to the doctors. And in the end, what? You need to lie down for preservation. Be careful, don't overexert yourself. It's like this pregnancy took you away from me. Inessa forced herself to take a deep breath. Black spots swam before my eyes. It's not just a pregnancy, Kolya. These are our children, the 3 you wanted. I wanted a child, one. He took a sip of his coffee and winced. Who knew what would happen? Triplets. This is some kind of absurdity. You were the one who threw away my pills. After the withdrawal of hormonal drugs, superovulation often occurs. She felt a wave of anger rise inside her. Starts. He put down his mug. I just wanted you to stop poisoning yourself with hormones. How did I know that you would get pregnant right away? And your persuasions to be together without protection? That you will have time and that's it. Control? What is this? His face trembled for a moment, but quickly returned to a mask of righteous indignation. Some kind of nonsense. Hysterical. He grabbed the tablet. I'm late. And what do you suggest? Inessa felt her knees tremble from the rolling weakness. Nikolai stopped in the doorway and turned around. His handsome face was calm, as if he was contemplating a normal work task. Do you remember that the doctor talked about reduction, when one child is left and the others are disposed of? Maybe not yet. It's late? The air stuck in his throat like a lump of dry cotton wool. She looked at him, not recognizing the man who had once loved. You're out of here, she said. Right away. I did, you don't understand. He stepped closer. His face showed sympathy. I've thought it over. If it's too late for reduction, then you can do it from 2. Refuse and take only one of the strongest. But we will be able to live normally. We can't afford 3 and 1 is just good. Come, she screamed, feeling the muscles in her stomach instantly tense, and the children inside became agitated as they responded to her. Stress. Nikolai's face turned to stone. He silently took the keys and left, carefully closing the door behind him. Inessa slowly lowered herself on a chair, clasping his stomach in his hands, as if trying to protect the children from this man, from his logic, from how ruthlessly he manipulated her. An hour later the doorbell broke the silence of the apartment. Inessa slowly tore it away, head from the sofa cushion, where she had fallen into an anxious sleep. Every sound reverberated with a throbbing pain in his temples. Open it, Inessa, I know that you are at home. Mother's voice. Authoritative, demanding. Inessa closed her eyes, trying to gather her strength. She didn't want to see anyone, especially her mother, who never knew how to. Listen, only talk. I'm coming, she replied, getting up from the sofa with difficulty. Valentina Petrovna burst into the apartment like a hurricane, bringing with it the smell of strong perfume and intolerance. Her neatly styled sitting hair, and the formal suit of an experienced teacher, contrasted sharply with her exhausted appearance. Daughter. Nikolai called me upset, she started from the doorway. What have you done again? Inessa leaned against the wall, feeling her legs give way. Please, Mom, not now. And when? Valentina Petrovna threw off her shoes and went into the kitchen. When will you destroy your family completely? Lord, Inessa, what? For a mess? She looked disgustingly at the unwashed dishes. Did you come to scold me or help me? Inessa's voice, it sounded hollow. Do you think that I will flow with your whim? Mother opened the dishwasher with a sudden movement, and began to take out clean plates. A man works all day, returns home, and then do you even understand that he can leave? Inessa smiled bitterly. If you only knew, Mom, what he even proposed today. I know, Valentina Petrovna cut off, turning on the water. He told me. Told. I think he is right. The room seemed to shrink to the size of a matchbox, and Nessa looked at her mother, not believing your ears. What did you say? What I heard, my mother was aggressively rubbing the plate with a sponge. You're selfish, Inessa, always. Was. It will be difficult for you, and it will be 3 times more difficult with 1 child, with 3. Nikolai thinks correctly. Reduction is a medical procedure, not murder. Why are you so dramatic? Well, Or as a last resort keep one, the state will take care of the rest. Mummy, Inessa choked from surging feelings. How can you? These are your grandchildren. I'm thinking about your health and the well-being of your family, she said. Valentina Petrovna, unlike you who only thinks about her own principles, life is about compromises, Inessa. I figured this out a long time ago. The door in the hallway slammed. Nikolai returned, and Inessa physically felt her strength finally leaving her, squeezed between two oppressive walls. Valentina Petrovna. Nikolai's voice sounded worried. Thanks for coming. He walked into the kitchen, glanced briefly at his wife, and smiled at his mother-in-law. I'm so glad you understand us. Inessa simply does not want to hear the voice of reason. I explained to her that you are absolutely right, Kolya. The mother went up to her son-in-law and patted him on the shoulder in a motherly way. You need to think about the future. One healthy child is better than 3 problem ones, and it will be so for your marriage. Calmer. Inessa felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen, sharp as a knife blow. She involuntarily cried out, grabbing the edge of the table. Here it is again, sighed Nicholas. Do you see, Valentina Petrovna? Eternal. A performance when the conversation turns to inconvenient things. I feel bad, Inessa squeezed out. You can leave. Me in peace. Inez, stop it. His mother's voice slashed like a slap in the face. Stop manipulating. Nikolai and I discussed this and the decision was made. Tomorrow you will go to the doctor and discuss the procedure. Inessa didn't hear from me anymore. She walked heavily to the room and collapsed on the sofa, almost losing consciousness. You were great. Karina stretched her whole body like a well-fed cat. Presentation. It went with a bang. I saw the face of Sergei Vladimirovich. He was delighted. Nikolai lazily sorted through the blonde strands of her hair spread over the pillow. At work, I'm always great. He smiled smugly. And not only at work. Karina's apartment, small and fashionable, has been his refuge for the last 3 months. Here no one complained of back pain and did not require constant attention. It smelled of expensive perfume, not medicine, and despair. Karina raised herself on her elbows. You talked to your wife about what we discussed. His face instantly darkened, said. She threw a tantrum as always. And what about reduction? Karina bit her lip. You promised that you would solve this issue. To me, I need guarantees, Kolya. If she has 3 children, you will never be able to leave her. You will be an eternal slave. Alimony. Nikolai moved away irritably. I know, Karina, I'm working on it. Work? She snorted. How? Crying with her mother. This is not a solution? What do you suggest? He abruptly sat up on the bed. Forcibly drag her to the clinic? Karina paused, thoughtfully running her finger along his bare back. And what if they don't survive? Nikolai turned around. His eyebrows crawled up. What do you mean? Triplet pregnancy is very risky. Her voice sounded calm, as if she was discussing the weather forecast. Especially if the mother is under severe stress. Miscarriages happen, then there will be no children, no alimony, and we can be together. Nicholas looked at her, not blinking. They met 6 months ago at a corporate party. She approached him with a glass of champagne as he complained. Colleagues for a pregnant wife. Children, it's terrible, she said then, lightly touching his hand. And in her eyes, I saw what I had been looking for a long time, a cold, rational understanding. Do you want me to miscarry her? He said it in a whisper, as if he was afraid of his own words. No, Kolya, Karina laughed, throwing her head back. I say that sometimes fate solves problems for us. We just don't have to get in her way. Nikolai felt a chill run down his spine. This woman was more dangerous than he thought, and for some reason it excited him. I need to talk to Igor. He reached for the phone, find out how things are with divorce in such a situation. Of course, Karina kissed him on the neck. Think about the future, dear. About our future. Listen, Kolya, it's not like that. Simply. Igor drummed his fingers on the countertop in a half-empty cafe. It is extremely difficult to divorce a pregnant wife in Russia. The court will be on her side. Even if I prove that the children are not mine. Nikolai lowered his voice. Igor choked on his coffee. And? Are they not yours? Of course mine, Nikolai waved him off, but there are ways. You're a lawyer. Think of something. Kolya, are you out of your mind? Igor frowned. I understand that you have fallen in love with your secretary. The assistant to the head was automatically corrected by Nikolai. No matter. Igor took a sip of coffee. I know such stories. In 6 months you will play with her and regret the destroyed family. Think about children. I think about them, Nikolai stammered. 3 children is madness. Inessa and I have never planned so much. Then why did you start a child with her at all, if you were already having an affair on the side? Nikolai took it away. I thought it would strengthen our marriage. And then he realized that he was mistaken. I have real feelings with Karina. Igor, disbelieving, shook his head. You know, Kolya, I have been conducting divorce proceedings for 10 years. And I can only give you one piece of advice. Don't do it, stupid. Do not spoil the life of yourself, your wife, or your children. Nikolai's phone rang. A name flashed on the screen. Mother-in-law. Yes, Valentina Petrovna. As he listened, his face grew paler. What happened? Igor asked anxiously. Inessa feels bad, Nikolai replied in a muffled voice, getting up. The ambulance arrived. It seems that something is wrong with pregnancy. When he ran into the apartment there was already a paramedic and 2 others, ambulance staff. Inessa was lying on the floor, pale as a sheet, and a dark stain of blood was spreading around. You, husband? Asked one of the doctors. Your wife has a placental abruption. I need urgent hospitalization. Yes, of course, Nikolai muttered, feeling everything getting cold inside. Valentina Petrovna stood aside, pressing her hand to her mouth. Her eyes were full of horror. I told you she was bad, she said quietly. And you said that she is manipulating. Nikolai did not answer. He looked at his wife's pale face, at her belly, which in the morning only caused in him irritation, and felt a wave of panic wash over him. Will she survive? We will do everything possible, the doctor replied briefly, helping his colleagues to shift Inessa on a stretcher. When the door closed behind them. Ambulance! Nikolai felt a strange emptiness inside. He took out his phone and typed a message. Karine, you were right. It seems that fate has solved our problems. As he dismissed it, he felt nausea approaching. Throat. Valentina Petrovna stood nearby, confused and aged by 10 years. It's my fault, she whispered. I didn't believe her. Oh my God, what have I done? Nikolai silently turned and walked to the car. He needed to pretend to be a caring husband in the hospital. Inessa should consider it a support, not a source of stress. At least until it's over. Will it end? Everything is as Karina predicted. He tried not to think about it, pushing away the image of the 3 tiny hearts with all his might. Beating inside his wife's belly, hearts that could soon stop beating. The white ceiling with cracks formed a bizarre map of an unknown country. Inessa had been studying it for the 8th day, lying on a hard hospital bed. The phone next to him was lifelessly silent. She dialed Nikolai's number for the 14th time. Guts. Endless beeps. And then the cold voice of the answering machine. Your fingers found the end button on their own. It's useless, right? The hoarse voice of the next bed was heard. Inessa turned. Head. Marina, her roommate, a woman with short brown hair and tired eyes, looked at her with a knowing smile. Mine didn't answer either. 22 calls, and then I gave up. Marina raised herself on her elbows. Do you know what the doctor told me? Better take care of yourself, not calls. It's hard to take care of yourself when you have 3 little people inside you who depend on you, Inessa answered quietly, gently stroking her stomach. How long do you have left? If everything goes well, about 8 more weeks. But the doctor said triplets are often born earlier, Marina whistled. 3 at once. I can't imagine. I can barely cope with one. This is my 2nd pregnancy. The door to the room opened, and a nurse with IV drips entered. Ermakova's blood pressure jumps again, she reproachfully looked at Marina. You need to lie down more and not get out of bed unnecessarily." While the nurse, fiddling with the drip, Inessa closed her eyes. The events of the last few days floated before her inner eye like frames of a slow-motion movie. Blood on the kitchen floor, anxious faces of doctors, and Nikolai. Did his anxiety seem real, or was he already playing a role? "It's time for you to go to the procedures." The nurse came to her bed. "I'll bring the stroller now. If the ultrasound shows normality, you can walk a little on your own." Her legs were buzzing with weakness, but she stubbornly wandered along the hospital corridor. "The crisis is over. Doctors recommended small walks to improve blood circulation. 10 minutes, no more," Dr. Savliev warned. Inessa reached the end of the corridor and turned to the elevators. Every step was difficult, but she wanted to escape from the stuffy ward, at least for a while, to see something other than a cracked ceiling and peeling paint walls. On the ground floor there was a small hospital cafe. "I'll just walk to it, sit for 5 minutes and come back," she decided, pressing the elevator button. The doors opened, and Inessa froze. The man standing in the cab seemed just as surprised. "Inessa, it can't be Dmitri," she sighed, smiling involuntarily. "What are you doing in this hospital?" Dmitri Arkadyevich Samoilov, the owner of the Gallery of Modern Art on Chisty Prudy, the man whose collection she dreamed of. To get in as a student. Now he stood in front of her in an ordinary jumper and jeans with a bouquet of peonies in his hands. "Auntie broke it. Hip. Lies in traumatology." He looked her up and down, and his gaze lingered on her huge belly. "How about you? I don't even knew you were expecting a baby. You look terrible." She grinned self-ironically. "No." He shook his head. Do you have twins?" "How did you guess?" "To be precise, triplets. My sister had twins." He smiled. "But your belly is impressive even against this background." Inessa felt a strange lightness. Dmitri. He always spoke directly, without embellishment. And this freed me from the need to pretend that everything was fine. Can you walk?" he asked. "The cafe has decent tea, only if it doesn't last long." The doctor allowed 10 minutes' walk. They sat by the window, looking out over the hospital yard where the parking attendant commanded the ambulances. Dmitri ordered tea for them and cheese sandwiches. "Do you remember how we met?" he asked, stirring sugar in a cup. Inessa smiled, recalling. "Of course, you came to the museum and demanded to see this one. Renoir's dubious restoration. And then for 2 hours he asked me tricky questions about the technique." "I was sure that you spoiled the picture," Dmitri admitted. "Did you turn out to be a real professional?" "The only one I could admit to my collection." Inessa remembered how she worked on his orders. Each time with awe and awe. Dmitri collected paintings by little-known but talented artists of the Silver Age. "Not everything is measured by names," he said. "Art in a mask, in feeling, in a moment of truth." "Why did you stop working with my gallery?" Looked her straight in the eyes. "I offered you a permanent contract, and you suddenly disappeared." Inessa looked away. "It does not." Could explain to him that Nikolai made a scandal when he saw their joint photo at the opening of the exhibition. "He looks at you as if you were my property," he shouted then. And she gave in as she always did. "Difficulties with the schedule," she lied. "And now it doesn't matter why," he frowned. "Talent must not be wasted, Inez." She involuntarily shuddered. This abbreviation of her name was used only by relatives, friends. "Look at me." She circled her huge belly with her hand. "What talent, what art. I will soon be a mother. 3 children. I have no time for paintings." Dmitri looked attentively at her pale face, then at her hands, which they shook involuntarily when she tried to bring the cup to her mouth. "What happened, Inessa? You're not just pregnant, you look hounded. Your husband supports you. Loved ones." Unexpectedly for herself, she felt tears rise to her throat. "She is so—" She held on for a long time that now, faced with sincere care, her shields began to crumble. "He doesn't care." The voice sounded hollow. "He wanted me to get rid of the 2 and the builder." And then I found out that he was having an affair on the side. Dmitri put his hand on her palm. The gesture was calm and confident. I'm sorry, and I didn't. No one deserves this. Something in his voice made her believe that they weren't just words. She took a deep breath and decided. Tell him everything. About Nikolai's manipulations, about his mother's betrayal, about his fear and loneliness. He listened without interrupting, only gripping her hand tighter when she fell silent, choosing her words. Dmitri looked older, 40 years. The sits on the temples and the wrinkles in the corners of the eyes betrayed a person who knew the value of life's trials. I can help, he said when she finished. I have connections in medical circles. My sister, obstetrician gynecologist, she works in a leading clinic. I will arrange a consultation about the best drugs. Why do you need this? Inessa asked, looking at their joined hands. We're not even friends because I respect you as a professional, he replied simply. And I hate injustice. She wanted to answer, but suddenly she saw Valentina Petrovna resolutely walking through the cafe to their table. Her mother was in the same formal suit, her hair was smoothly combed back, but her face looked sunken and aged. Inessa. Valentina Petrovna's voice rang with tension. What are you doing here? The doctor said you've got to lie down. Mom? Inessa instinctively pulled her hand away from Dmitri's palm. I just went for a permitted walk. Meet Dmitri Arkadyevich, the owner of the gallery. I am not interested in who it is. Valentina Petrovna cut off. Get ready, we're leaving. Where? Inessa is surprised, looked at her mother. Home, of course, Nikolai, she stammered. We need to have a serious talk. This whole situation. You have to do something so that he doesn't leave you completely, and even with children. Dmitri silently watched this scene, but Inessa saw how the muscles of his face tensed. Mom, I'm not going anywhere. I can't leave the hospital. This is dangerous for children. You should have thought about children earlier. In the voice of Valentina Petrovna, steel was ringing. Before your husband found himself a mistress. You couldn't create a normal family, you couldn't. To keep her husband. And now excuse me. Dmitri's voice was calm, but there was a hidden power in it. I do not know, but it seems to me that now is not the time or place for such conversations. I need peace. And who are you to indicate what my daughter needs? Valentina Petrovna looked at him with contempt. Was it because of you that Nikolai made this scandal? Mommy. Inessa felt the color of shame flood her face. Stop immediately. Dmitri, my former employer and old acquaintance, he ended up here by accident. Inessa tried to get up, but a sharp pain shot through her lower back, and she gasped, clutching at the edge of the table. You see, you feel bad. Valentina Petrovna jumped up to her daughter. You need to go home, where you will be properly cared for, where you can try to save your family. And not flirt with strange men, Inessa noticed. As Fatima the nurse goes to their table. From her department, a plump middle-aged woman with a friendly face and a stern look. What's going on? She asked. She looked around all three with attentive eyes. It's okay, Inessa began. I'm taking my daughter home. Valentina Petrovna interrupted. Prepare documents for discharge. Fatima looked at Inez, then at her stomach, then back at Valentina Petrovna. Your daughter is under the supervision of doctors due to the threat of premature birth. Her voice was not loud, but firmly. No one has the right to take it away without the permission of the attending physician. I am her mother. Valentina Petrovna straightened up in full height. They are her children. Fatima put her hand on Inessa's stomach. This is a simple human movement. Nurse's hand on. Her belly suddenly filled Inessa with incredible strength. Like a barrier between her and the world, a barrier of someone else's kindness. First, I'm staying in the hospital, Mom, she said firmly. Either you accept it or you'd better leave. Valentina Petrovna. She recoiled as if she had been slapped in the face. Something so defenseless flashed in her eyes that for a moment rushed. I felt sorry for her. But then the mother's face was frozen again in a mask of righteous anger. Well, you've made your choice, she pursed her lips. Don't come to me later to cry when you're left alone with 3 children in their arms. Without a husband, without support, without leaving, or you will be taken out, Fatima said quietly, taking a step. Forward. Valentina Petrovna turned sharply and headed for the exit. At the door she turned. You don't give me any more, daughter. The phrase hung in the air like a dusty spider's web. Inessa felt a strange emptiness, as if the thread that connected her with the past had just been broken. Let's go back to the ward, Fatima said softly, helping. She should get up. You've already walked enough. Dmitri also got up. I'll see you off. Don't, Fatima smiled. You'd better come back tomorrow. With gifts, with some good book. She needs to distract herself from these bloodsuckers. Despite the pain and shocks, Inessa laughed. For the first time in a long time she felt that she was not alone against everything. That there are people who are ready to take its side simply because it is the right thing to do. Thank you, she said. Fatima, as they walked down the corridor to the elevator. For what? The nurse was surprised. For not letting your mother kill you, and children with their tantrums. This is my job, child. I defend those who cannot defend themselves. Lying in that bed. At night, listening to Marina's quiet snoozing from the next bed, Inessa thought about Fatima's words. Protect those who cannot. Protect yourself. Wasn't that what her mother had taught her? But for some reason, mother's lessons always boiled down to self-sacrifice. Subordination to the recognition of men's rightness. For the first time, Inessa realized the perversity of this logic. Defense does not require sacrifices, it requires strength. And this strength awoke in her every day. Not thanks to his family, but in spite of it. She placed her palms on her stomach, feeling how her children are stirring inside. I will protect you, she promised silently. Even if it means being alone. The phone on the bedside table buzzed with an incoming message. Inessa opened it and smiled. Dmitri, I will come tomorrow at 11 exactly, with magazines, fruits, and good news. She fell asleep, and for the first time in a long time, she was not haunted by nightmares. The hospital morning was bathed in sterile light when the woman in stilettos entered the room. The clatter of her heels echoed. Polynolium, like a drum roll, is a harbinger of trouble. Inessa, half lying in bed, put down the book that had been brought by Dmitri. She knew who it was without even looking at the visitor. An icy sensation under her ribs told her. Before the eye. Inesochka! Karina's voice was oozing with fake sweetness. How are you here, poor thing? She was beautiful, that calculating beauty, which is based on perfect makeup and designer clothes. Blonde hair is styled in a wave, eyes are drawn, lips, a bright grove of lipstick. The complete opposite of the pale Inessa with her face swollen from droppers, tangled hair. What do you need? Inessa. I straightened up, instinctively protecting my stomach with my hands. Marina in the next bed stopped flipping through the magazine and carefully watched the scene. I brought some papers. Nikolai asked me to pass it on. Karina put a thick envelope on the bedside table. Divorce documents. He has already signed everything, the lawyer said. You need it too. Inessa looked at the envelope, feeling his heart begin to pound unevenly. 3 years of marriage fit into a pile of legal formulations. He did not. He could come himself. Oh, but you know your husband. Karina picturesquely rolled her eyes. That is, almost an ex. He. So sensitive. He said that it hurts him to see you in such a state, and you therefore do not hurt. Inessa heard. There are unfamiliar metallic notes in his voice. Well, what are you talking about? Karina's smile became predatory. I'm just wondering. Here I look. On you, and I think how he lived with you in general. Such a gray mouse? And even with this. She nodded disgustedly at Inessa's stomach. Inessa felt nausea roll up to her throat, either from Karina's words, or from her cloying spirits, who filled the small ward. We have already applied for a signature, Karina continued. As soon as you will sign the papers, of course, because Kolya and I have grandiose plans. He will finally be a woman who truly understands him, that is, allows him to be scum. Inessa asked hoarsely. Karina laughed. Well, why so rude? It's just that I'm not trying to remake it. I do not reproach for ambitions, do not drag to the bottom with my problems. And he is everything for you. He gave him an apartment, a car, You could be more grateful. Listen, you. Marina suddenly sat up on the bed. Get out of here, forgive me. Karina raised her eyebrows. I'm not talking to you. But I'm with you, dear. Marina stood up, towering over the fragile Karina like a rock. Here lie the women who, fighting for their children. And you came here to mock, so that we would all look at your designer clothes and envy you. How did you take away your husband? Yes, how did you start, Karina? Yes, that's it. Marina stepped closer, forcing Karina to retreat to door. If you're still here in 5 seconds, I swear I'll call the guards and tell them you're here to make a fuss. Pregnant. Inessa silently watched as Karina, throwing a last poisonous look, flew out of the ward. The clatter of her heels dissolved in the noise of the squad. Thank you, Inessa said quietly. Goodness. Marina sat down on the edge of her bed. I've seen such people. They think that the whole world should revolve around them. Her husband really left for her. Inessa nodded, feeling the pain inside her. Physical pain was almost a blessing. It distracted from the soul. Bastard, Marina said simply. Throw a slimmer woman for preservation. Inessa wanted to answer, but suddenly felt something inside her shrink, and then let go with a wet feeling. She looked down and saw a dark stain spreading across the sheet. Marina, whispered. She was panting. It seems to be me. Marina glanced at the stain and rushed to the door. Sister, hurry here. Everything else happened as if in a fog. Dr. Savliev, an elderly man with tired eyes and confident hands, a quick inspection, sharp commands to the nurses, a stretcher, a corridor flashing in front of with the eyes of tiles. You have started to have placental abruption. His voice came as if from afar. Required. Emergency cesarean section. Now we will give you anesthesia. But it's too early, Inessa whispered. They need another 8 weeks. We will do our best. The doctor squeezed her hand. You just hold on. It was strangely pleasant to swim in the dark. Pain disappeared. Only the feeling of flight remained. Inessa heard voices, but did not understand the words. I saw the light, but I couldn't. Open your eyes. I felt the touch, but I couldn't move. Too much blood. The pressure drops critically. The first one does not breathe. The second without a heartbeat. A third, no, not either. The phrases penetrated her mind like raindrops through broken glass, separate, cold, not forming a general picture. And then complete darkness fell. Inessa, can you hear me? Eyes. An unfamiliar woman's face bent over her, young with short hair and serious eyes for simple glasses. My name is Polina, I am a hospital psychologist. The woman spoke softly but without cloying pity. Dr. Savliev asked me to talk to you. My children. The voice did not obey, coming out with a hoarse whisper. Polina silently. I put my hand on her shoulder and this gesture said more than any words. All 3? Inessa squeezed out. Yes, Polina replied simply. I am so sorry. I want to see them. You can say goodbye to them a little later. Polina sat down on the table next to the bed. Now you need to recover from surgery. You had a lot of blood loss. What's the odds? Inessa turned to the wall. Now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Polina said firmly. Your life matters. And what you feel. Now, it also matters. And what should I feel? Inessa turned, looking at the psychologist with empty eyes. I gave them. I didn't even have time to find out. They were just inside. They didn't have time to become real. They were real to you. Polina got it, a small notebook from his pocket. And your loss is real. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Inessa stared at the ceiling. Someone inside her was screaming, beating, tearing her soul with her nails. But outside there was only emptiness, resounding as an abandoned well. They didn't even have names, she whispered. We didn't know if they were boys or girls. Nikolay wanted. Wait for the birth to find out. And now you can give them names now, Polina suggested. This is part of the process. Farewell. Process, Inessa smiled bitterly. You have a protocol for this too. Not protocol, Polina shook her head. Path. And everyone has their own. My job is to help you find yours. The following days merged into an endless series: conversations with Polina, injections, IVs, and emptiness. Dmitri came every day, but Inessa asked the nurses not to let her in. She could not bear the sympathy in his eyes, could not speak of the future he had mentioned on every visit. "I gave them names," she said to Pauline on the 5th day. "Faith, Hope, and Love. Beautiful names," the psychologist nodded. "Why did you choose them?" "Because they are no longer in my life." Inessa cried for the first time in these days. "No faith, no hope, no love." Polina silently handed her a napkin. "How did you feel when you named them, that they have become mine?" Inessa wiped her eyes. "Truly, mine. Not Nicholas, only my name. This is an important realization," Polina noted. "What else do you feel, as soon as your own not shared with your husband?" Inessa thought for a moment. "Your pain, your body, your profession. Previously Nikolai controlled everything, even my art, and now I have nothing. But what's left is only mine. This is the beginning." Polina smiled. "A small step towards rebuilding boundaries. To understand where it is not you who end, but other people. What's the point of that?" Inessa shook her head. "I am discharged in 2 days. I will return to an empty apartment, where everything will remind me of what is no longer happens. Do you want to go back there?" "And where should I go? To my mother who had disowned me? To the husband who betrayed?" "You can look for other options," Polina said cautiously. "Temporary housing, the help of friends." "I have no friends." Inessa grinned bitterly. "Nikolai gradually cut me off from everyone. I even stopped communicating with my colleagues. And the man who comes every day, he is here for a reason." Inessa sighed. "Dmitri, he is a former employer. I did the restoration of paintings for him. He's just too much. Decent to leave a person in trouble, or does he see more in you than you're willing to admit?" Polina closed her notebook. "Think about it before our next meeting, about what you have left, not just what you have lost. You will." "Pregnant?" Nikolai looked at Karina with horror. "But how?" She was sitting opposite him in an expensive restaurant where she had invited to celebrate freedom. Her face was a mixture of triumph and mild irritation. "Root, in the usual way. When a man and a woman love each other, she smiles mockingly, or at least regularly sleeps together. But we protected ourselves." He nervously glanced back at the next tables, lowering his voice. "You yourself said that you take pills, and you checked? She is. I drank a sip of wine or blindly believed, like your naive wife, when you threw away her contraceptives." "You are he." Choked with indignation. "Did you get pregnant on purpose?" "Of course." She shrugged her shoulders, made of indifference. "Think, do I just need a lover? I want a family, status, stability, and here is such an opportunity. Promising boss, department is looking for how to get rid of his disgusting wife. The perfect moment to tie him to you more securely. But I wasn't going to. Nikolai began to marry me." Karina laughed. "But now you have to, unless of course, you want the whole office to know what you did with your previous pregnant wife. This is blackmail. This is life, dear." She leaned closer. "Did you use Inessa? I'll use you. Everything is fair." Nikolai looked at the woman opposite, at her beautiful calculating face, and saw in it a reflection of his own soul. Fate with a mocking smile, she taught him a lesson from which he wanted to escape. "By the way," as if by the way, Karina added, "I had already told my parents that we were getting married, and hinted that they would become grandparents." "You what?" He dropped his fork. "Without my consent. And you asked Inessa's consent when threw away her contraceptives?" Karina smiled innocently. "Get used to it, Kolya. Now your life will be different." And at that moment Nikolai realized that his own game turned against him, and the simple words about family happiness that he manipulated Inessa became a prison for him, from which there is no way out. The April wind ruffled Inessa's hair as she stepped out of the glass doors of the hospital. The world beyond the sterile Koroborov seemed too bright, too loud, too alien. She pressed the strap of her bag tighter, about to step towards the stop. when she saw a familiar figure leaning against the silver shodan. Dmitri in a light coat with a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. "Did you come after all?" Inessa's voice sounded hollow-like, as if she had forgotten how to speak. "I came every day." He carefully took her bag. "It's just that you didn't always want to see me." She didn't answer. She had nothing to say to the man who had been waiting for weeks at the door of the department who, he brought books and fruit when she refused to talk to him. "I'll take you home," he said, opening the passenger door. "And where is my house now?" "In the apartment where my belongings. Her husband's mistress is sorting it out." "I took care of that," Dmitri replied simply. The car started smoothly. By joining the stream, Dmitri drove confidently, but carefully, as if he was transporting a fragile cargo. Inessa looked out the window at the spring streets floating by, at the people going about their business, whole, not broken, not devastated. It seemed that between them and her there was a glass wall as thick as life. "Where are we going?" she asked at last, noticing that they are not moving towards her area. At first Dmitri threw a quick glance at her. Polina said, "You need peace and new space." "No memories." Inessa shuddered. "Did you talk to my psychologist?" "They are not allowed to divulge details, but I was given general recommendations." He smiled slightly. "After all, I indicated myself as a contact person for discharge." "But why?" She turned to him. "We have hardly communicated in recent years. Why do you care?" Dmitri stopped at the traffic light and looked at her in the eyes. "Because I have always appreciated you and carried you as a professional, as a person. And I care what happens to you." Farther. Something in his voice, confidence without pressure, concern without pity, made her turn to the window to hide unbidden tears. Dmitri's apartment turned out to be unexpectedly cozy, spacious with high ceilings and large windows overlooking a quiet courtyard. Minimum furniture, maximum space. And the paintings on each wall are perfect, as if in a gallery. "The guest bedroom is here." He pointed to the door at the end of the hallway. "I've already moved your things there. I hired a cleaning company." "Service for your apartment." Dmitri spoke calmly, as if it was about something ordinary. "And a lawyer who?" "I prepared all the documents for divorce and division of property. Nikolay agrees to buy out your share in the apartment. Need only your signature when you're ready." Inessa sank into a chair, stunned. "But how? Why are you doing this?" "Because you wouldn't have been able to handle it on your own." He squatted down in front of her, looking into her eyes. "Not now, and he would take advantage of your weakness. I just prepared the ground. All decisions are yours." Inessa looked at this man, who had so delicately invaded her life, and she did not know whether to thank him or to be indignant. "But this, a lot of money," she muttered, "which I can afford to spend on a friend." He shrugged his shoulders. "Not worry about it now. You'd better eat and rest. And tomorrow you have a meeting with Polina here. I have arranged for the family sessions." For the first time in weeks, Inessa felt that she could just close her eyes and let someone else decide. For her, just for a while, just to gain strength. "I thought it would hurt more," Inessa said to Polina through a month after discharge, physically, emotionally. But inside there is only emptiness. They were sitting in a small winter garden arranged by Dmitri on a glazed loggia. Among the greenery of indoor plants, Inessa felt calmer. Emptiness is also pain. Polina was taking notes in a notebook. "It's just a different form of it. When you start something, feel again, don't be frightened. I'm not ready." Inessa clenched her fingers into fists. "If I allow myself to feel this loss completely, you won't break," Polina said softly. "The worst has already happened, and you are here. You survived." Survived. This word sounded strange, almost blasphemous. Inessa did not feel like a survivor, rather a ghost wandering around someone else's apartment, observing someone else's life, trying to remember what it is like to be man. "Dmitri asked if I wanted to take up the restoration again," she said, changing the subject. "He bought Some old painting at auction. And what did you say? That I am not ready yet. And what would you feel if you took Hans' hand? Only honestly. Inessa closed her eyes, imagining the fear that I would not be able to, that I had forgotten that all my skills died along with her stumbling. With children? Polina asked quietly. You can pronounce this word, Inessa, it won't kill you. With my children, she squeezed out, feeling something move inside like thin ice. Begins to crack with faith, hope and love. Polina silently handed her a napkin. You know, many mothers, those who have lost their children, say that they have found a way to keep in touch with them through creativity, through what gave them joy before loss. Pictures will not replace children, Inessa said bitterly. Of course not, Polina agreed, but perhaps they will help you not to forget who you are. In addition to his mother who lost her children, Dmitri was surprisingly unobtrusive. He did not demand conversations, did not insist on joint dinners, did not force her to make decisions, just was there, taking care of her. Everything from the food in the fridge to the fresh flowers in her room. One evening Inessa went into his office to take a book. Dmitri was sitting at the table, studying some papers. Won't I disturb you? She asked, stopping in the doorway. He raised his head and smiled, as he had smiled years ago in a museum when he saw her work. You've never. You will interfere. He looked tired, but calm. Sitting on the temples, wrinkles around the eyes, he was not handsome, but his face was so strong that Inessa involuntarily admired it. What are you working on? She came closer, looking over his shoulder. Catalog for the new exhibition. Dmitri showed photographs of paintings laid out on the table. Look, this is the work of Zhukovsky, a small masterpiece, but in need of serious restoration. Inessa involuntarily leaned closer, looking at a landscape darkened by time. Yes, you see, in the upper corner there are crocatures, and in the center there is a part of the colorful layer. She stopped, realizing that her hand was already reaching for the image, and her voice sounded the same as before, professional, enthusiastic. I'm sorry, she pulled her hand away. For what? Dmitri turned in his chair face to face with her. For being yourself again for a second. There. Eyes met, and time seemed to stand still. Inessa suddenly saw in his eyes what she had missed all these years. A quiet, confident feeling that did not require reciprocity, but did not disappear either. I have always admired your talent, he said quietly, and your strength, although you do not see it yourself. I'm not strong, Inessa shook her head. A strong woman would not allow what Nicholas did to her. A strong woman, the one who survives after all this and finds the courage to live on. Dmitri carefully took her hand. I see how. You do it every day, step by step. Inessa did not pull away. There was no demand in his touch, no. There was pressure, only support and warmth, which she needed so much. I found your paints and brushes in the closet, she admitted. I wanted to try but did not dare. Dmitri smiled. They're waiting for you. And so is my little workshop. 2 weeks later, Inessa was standing in front of Malbert, who was exposed by the window. Sunlight fell on a small canvas, the same landscape of Zhukovsky, which Dmitri entrusted to her for restoration. Her hands moved confidently, mixing colors, finding the exact shades. The body remembered that the mind was trying to forget how to breathe deeply, how to feel the beautiful, how to dissolve in work, how to progress. Dmitri looked into the room, holding 2 cups of tea in his hands. Inessa took a step back, assessing the result. Better than me, thought. The hand has not forgotten how to do it. I had no doubts. He placed the cup beside her. Inez, I wanted to offer you something. Not as charity but as a business proposal. She looked up from the painting. Listening, my gallery is expanding. We are opening a restoration workshop at it. I need a specialist who will lead this direction. Buxom. Creative freedom, decent pay, no pressure. Inessa froze, not believing her ears. You offer me work? I suggest that you go back to what you love. He looked at her seriously. At what makes you you? Inessa felt something long forgotten rising inside, desire, aspiration, hope. Quiet. The voice whispered, "It's too early, you're not ready, you're going to break." But the other, more profound, answered, "You survived. Can you do it?" "I'll think about it," she gasped. Dmitri nodded without insisting, and headed for the door. "Dmitri," she called out, "she is his. Thanks for everything." He turned around, and there was so much warmth in his smile that Inessa, for the first time in many months, I felt the ice inside her begin to melt. "Did you sign the papers?" Karina nervously tapped her nails on the countertop. Nicholas looked at his pregnant bride with ill-concealed irritation. In recent months, her ideal image has crumbled, exposing a capricious, domineering nature. Not yet. He drank his coffee. "To me, it is necessary to clarify some points." "What other points?" Karina raised her voice. "You promised to register half of it in my name, apartments before the wedding." Low voice, please. He winced. "We are in a public place." Spit. "She is," leaned across the table. "I'm 7 months pregnant, my legs are swollen, my back hurts, and you are still dragging your feet with the registration." Nikolai mentally compared her with Inessa, who even slimmer had never allowed herself such tantrums in public places. The thought of Inessa caused a sharp pang of conscience, which he hastened to drown out. "I'll do everything, it just takes time," he said wearily. "My lawyer says—" "Your lawyer? Or your new secretary with whom you stayed late yesterday?" Nikolai stared at her in amazement. "Are you following me?" "Of course I do." She leaned back in her chair, stroking her belly. "Do you think I'll let you do with us as you did with Iness?" He felt himself still throbbing inside with impotent rage. Karina kept him on a short leash, blackmailing, either with pregnancy or with threats to talk at work about their affair, which began when his wife was on. Saving. "I will never leave my child," he said. "Of course you won't," Karina smiled sweetly, "because I won't allow it. Now smile and order me another dessert. After all, a long happy life awaits us. Together, isn't it, my beloved?" And Nikolai smiled, feeling the noose of his own mistakes tightening around his neck. Woven from lies, betrayal and cowardice, the autumn light flooded the gallery, turning even specks of dust in the air into tiny golden sparks. Inessa stepped back, assessing the hanging. 18 canvases, 6 restored, 12, created by herself, formed a story without words, understandable only to those who knew how to look with their hearts. "Think. Will people like it?" She turned to Dmitri, who was standing against the far wall, making notes in the catalogue. "Like?" He looked up, and they reflected the same light that filled the gallery. "They will be shocked. Your rebirth series is more than art. A year and a half, exactly that long it took to assemble fragments of broken life and put them together into something new. The old Inessa, that woman died in a hospital room along with her unborn children. The new Inessa was stronger, wiser, with scars but not a broken name. Without you, nothing would have worked." She walked over to Dmitri and lightly touched his hand, a gesture that had become habitual over these months. "Untruth." He smiled, interlacing their fingers. "You could have done it anyway, simply perhaps in a different way." Their relationship grew out of the ashes of her past, slowly, carefully. First, like friendship, then like partnership, and now Inessa looked at the silver ring on her hand, simple and elegant. Dmitri proposed a month ago on their first real vacation on the ocean, without pathos and anguish, just like a natural continuation of what was already between them. "Imagine, in a week this hall will be filled with people." She circled the gallery space with her hand. "The first solo exhibition of Inessa Klimova." "The first of many," Dmitri said confidently. "And by the way, the agent called in the morning. That collector in Paris was really interested in Silent Storm, my favorite painting." Inessa feigned a frown, not sure if she was ready to part with her. "We can make a reproduction for home," Dmitri suggested. "And by the way, about the house. I looked at those options, in the suburbs. How do you feel about the idea of a studio with panoramic windows? Imagine what it is like. Inessa imagined a spacious room, soaked in the light of the Malbert window, and perhaps with. At the same time there is a cot in the next room. Yes, they talked about it cautiously, respecting her pain, but with hope. Doctors said that physically she could become a mother again when she was psychologically ready. Sounds perfect, she smiled. Light, space, and you are near. The bell above the front door rang melodiously. Inessa turned around, ready to explain to a casual visitor that the gallery is closed to prepare for the exhibition. But the words got stuck in my throat. In the doorway stood Nicholas, as if he had grown old. For 10 years, with shadows under his eyes, but still the same confident posture, a direct look of a man accustomed to get what you want, Inez. He took a step inside. I saw the poster of your exhibition. I could not believe my eyes. A year ago she would have cringed at his voice alone. 6 months ago, I would have experienced anger or hatred. Now there is only an echo of old pain, a phantom sensation, after a healed wound. Hello, Nikolai, she said evenly. The gallery is closed to visitors. Dmitri. He silently approached, standing next to her. Not in front, protecting, but right next to her, emphasizing her strength. I'm afraid I will have to leave. His voice sounded calm, without challenge. I'd like to talk to my wife alone. Nicholas ignored Dmitri, looking only at Inez. She corrected her ex-wife, surprised at how easily these words were pronounced. And I have nothing to say to you. Inez. Nikolai took another step, and his eyes took on the same expression with which he had once bewitched her. A mixture of supplication and strength. I made a terrible mistake. I understood this. Karina, she turned out to be not at all who I was. Considered. Inessa silently waited for the continuation, feeling neither triumph nor schadenfreude, only a slight sadness from the confirmation. A long-known truth. She left me immediately after giving birth. Nikolai ran his hand through his hair, and Inessa noticed the first gray hair on his temples. I was left with a child and debts. I realized that I was blind, that I had lost real happiness, chasing an illusion. And what do you want now? Inessa asked, although she already knew the answer. You, he said simply, us. Family, everything we had. I changed and carried. I realized how terrible I was to you, to our children. Pull over, she said quietly but firmly. Don't say that word. You have no right to talk about them, never, Nikolai omitted. Eyes. I'm sorry, but I've really changed. I am raising my son alone. Karina left for Europe with some businessman. I understood what it was like to be betrayed, abandoned. And you think that makes you worthy of forgiveness? Inessa shook head. Nikolai, you haven't changed. You just ended up in the place of the victim, and you didn't like it. Now you're looking for way out and found the old option. I'm not there, you don't understand. He stepped closer, holding out his hand. I really loved you always. I was just too stupid to appreciate it. Dmitri silently watched this scene without interfering. It was her fight, her moment of truth. I believe you, Inessa said calmly. I believe you think you loved me. But it was not love, Nikolai. Love doesn't manipulate, break, control, or return when it's convenient. I can change. His voice sounded desperate. Give me a chance to prove it. No, she shook her head, and it wasn't refusal, but a statement of fact. I'm no longer the woman you knew, who you could control. I grew out of that pain, what you have done to me, and I have a life of my own. She paused, collecting her thoughts. You know, I don't hate you. No more, and oddly enough, I am grateful for that experience. It led me to where I am now, to my real self, to his art, to a man who truly loves me, unconditionally. She took Dmitri's hand. But to return? No, Nikolai, never. She saw his face change from hope to disbelief, from disbelief to despair, and finally to that anger that has always lurked under the mask of charm. So this gallerist, he threw a contemptuous glance at Dmitri. He is now your choice after everything that has happened between us. My name is Dmitri Arkadyevich, he replied calmly. I, really happy to be Inessa's choice, And now I have to ask you to leave the room. We have a lot of work before opening. Nikolai stood as if petrified, looking at their intertwined hands, at Inessa's face. Calm, confident, without a shadow of the fear that once gave him power over her. "You'll regret it," he said. "Finally, when you realize that you missed the chance to fix everything. I wish you happiness, Nikolai." Inessa smiled. "And your son, too. Now please go away." When the door closed behind him, she exhaled and leaned against Dmitri. Are you okay?" he asked quietly, putting his arm around her shoulders. "Yes." She looked up. I felt like I had closed the last page of a book that I couldn't finish reading for too long, and now you can start a new one." The envelope arrived on the eve of the opening of the exhibition, thin paper, even handwriting of a Russian language teacher. Mother remained true to herself even in small things. "Dear Inessa," wrote Valentina Petrovna, "it took me a long time to find courage in myself, write to you, the courage to admit that you are wrong." Inessa put down the letter without finishing it, not out of anger or resentment, out of understanding that the time for this conversation had not yet come. His mother, like Nikolai, is a part of the past that needs to be let go, but not crossed out. Someday, perhaps, she will be willing to listen to apologies, try to understand her mother, and maybe even let her back into her life. But not now. Her own path was more important now. She carefully put the letter away in a drawer and returned to the preparations for the exhibition. Tomorrow a new stage began for her. Public recognition of her talent, the embodiment of the old reverie, and a month later, the wedding. Quiet, without pomp, only close people, and moving to the same house with large windows, where there will be enough space for everything she wants to create. 2 years later. "Look what kind of hands she has," Inessa exclaimed admiringly, watching how 7-year-old Masha carefully applied transparent varnishes to the training sample. Dmitri, who was standing in the doorway of the art studio, smiled. "A real restorer is growing." Inessa nodded. Their school New Life worked for the 2nd year, accepting children from ordinary families, from orphanages. Here they taught not only to restore old things but also to create new ones, to see the beauty in imperfection, to find value in the forgotten. The work brought not only money, but also deep satisfaction, the feeling that life has finally found meaning. "How is your meeting with your mother?" Dmitri asked quietly, as they got out of the class. "Not bad." Inessa smiled thoughtfully. "It's still weird and a bit of a stretch, but I think we're moving in the right direction. She's really trying." 6 months ago, Inessa finally answered her mother's letter, and they began a cautious rapprochement, one step at a time. Valentina Petrovna changed, became softer, learned to listen, stopped judging. Or maybe Inessa herself has changed. She has learned to set boundaries, not to expect the impossible, to accept people as what they are. "The director of the orphanage called," Dmitri said, changing the subject. "They had a 10-year-old girl, artistically gifted but withdrawn after the loss of her parents. They think our classes could help her." Inessa nodded. "Of course, let them bring it. Art heals, I know from my own experience." She looked back at the classroom where the children were restoring old toys, a project invented by Dmitri. Each item had its own story. Everyone could find a new life in caring hands. Inessa put her hand on her stomach, still flat but already keeping their little secret. After 6 months in their family, a child will appear. Girl, as the ultrasound showed last week, it took them time to make up their minds for Inessa to be. "I am ready to go through pregnancy again. To take the risk of loving a child that I can lose." But this fear is no longer. Owned it. She learned to live with him as a quiet companion who reminds her of the value of every moment, of fragility, happiness, and that even from the darkest depths it is possible to rise if you find the strength to take the first step. Faith, hope, love. She mentally turned to her unborn children as she did every day. "Look, we managed. Life goes on, and there's plenty of room for you. In my heart, in my memory, in every restored picture in every child whom we help to find himself. And as if in response, she felt a slight movement inside. The first impulse of a new life, a new beginning. A full circle has closed to begin a new spiral. Here's a brief ending for your story. Life often tests our strength, forcing us to go through pain and treachery. In Inessa's story, this is the path from destruction to rebirth, from victim to winner. And what do you think, dear ones? Readers, what would you do if you were in Inessa's place when her husband suggested that she keep only one child from the Troin? Would you forgive a mother who took the side of a manipulative son-in-law instead of supporting her own daughter? And what? Is it revenge for the past or the ability to let go of resentment for the sake of one's own healing? Share your thoughts in comments. If Inessa's story touched your heart, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends, and so as not to miss out on more exciting stories, subscribe to our YouTube channel. In the playlist below this video, you will find everything. Stories of our channel, about the strength of the human spirit, about ups and downs, about love and forgiveness. Thank you that were with us on this emotional journey. Until next time. Why?